Well, hello everyone. Welcome to CPG Brand Builders. And today we are talking about brand licensing. And I'm excited because we've got a great guest, James Slifer, who is here. And if you ever wanted to know how do brands create these great collaborations, these really unique promotions that either leverage celebrities, movies, other food brands together, this is your chance to really get on the inside. And so, James, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. All right. Well, if you don't know James, I'm gonna read out your quick bio here because it's pretty impressive. So, James is the managing director at Joester Loria, where he leads strategic brand licensing and growth initiatives for global consumer brands. With 24 years at the agency, James has built a distinguished career helping iconic companies including Chiquita, Constellation Brands, Kellanova, Toyota, Van Holten, Carle, and Post Holdings extend their brands into new categories while preserving long-term equity. And so, James, welcome here. So give us a quick background. How did you get into brand licensing? Like, take us a little bit in that kind of journey.
Absolutely. So I've been in licensing for about 30 years now. 30 years ago, no one knew what licensing was. I mean, it was not a discipline in college that you learn in a marketing class or management. And kind of like all my colleagues, we all fell into it. So I was working for a manufacturer right out of college. They were involved with licensing. They worked with the NFL and NBA and the Olympics. And it just intrigued me from the manufacturing side, and then ended up switching over to the agency side, representing a lot of big brands over the years. And that's what really caught my attention.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so give our marketing team, like, what is brand licensing, like 101? What is it? And we're just going to kind of get into those like examples of how does a CPG brand use it well, all that kind of stuff. But what is that just from your standpoint?
Sure. So I think from a 101 perspective, licensing, it's essentially manufacturers leasing a brand from an IP owner. And it's typically over a specific term. Is essentially where it goes. So.
Nice. Okay, so then give us an example of one that you've worked on. Like, how did the conversation start? What's behind the details? Because for all of us, we see them. We've either been a part of them, and they're all usually unique. They're all usually a little bit different of how they're structured and set up. But maybe give us an idea of a couple examples, and we can kind of go from there.
Yeah. So I'll give you a couple examples of what we've done in just the past few months. Because in general, our agency, we have about 800 licensees. So licensees are the manufacturer, licensors are the brand owner. So we manage all these companies in so many different product categories, ranging from toys, apparel, live shows, theme park rides. And then today, what we're talking about, really where my passion in the past 5 years I invested in is food and beverage. And that's where I'll give you some examples. So Chiquita is one of our newer clients that we brought on board in the past 2 years. And we developed their strategy for North America and Europe, bringing them into new formats. So two areas that we just recently finalized is bringing Chiquita into frozen novelty. So think about ice cream on a stick. It's banana flavored, chocolate coated with cookie crumbles. And then
perfect fit for Chiquita.
Yeah. And then little mini bonbons. So kind of a replica of the larger item, but in a smaller cup that will be coated with chocolate. And so we're launching in Europe. We found a company called Lick, and they're aggressive in Europe. They're involved in licensing, and they're launching literally this week. And they're going into about 20,000 doors throughout Germany, Italy, Switzerland, the Benelux region, and a few other countries in Europe. And the reaction has been really positive so far.
That's awesome. And so how did that conversation start? Like, so did they reach out to you? Did you approach them? And they're saying, hey, we've got this innovation idea. We want to be able to use Chiquita because it has the brand equity and people know what Chiquita is. And so banana flavor makes sense. Like, how did that conversation kind of unfold?
So typically, backing up a little, so when a brand owner hires us, we come in, we'll develop their licensing strategy, identify what areas we want to bring the brands into. They will sign off on it, and then we will go out and execute. So we'll reach out to potential manufacturers. We'll also go to retail. We'll speak to buyers and senior management, see what they think, because when you can get them behind a project like this, it just makes the process move so much quicker, because then they're going to react quicker. They feel like they're involved in the process. So when it comes to the buying decisions, they'll have a little more interest in, looking at something like this. So that's helped. So the one in Europe, believe it or not, as we were interviewing manufacturers over there, they found us. So I'm not going to take all the credit on this particular one, but they found us. And what was amazing is they were involved in licensing, and they were more on the spirit side. So they were working with Bailey's and a couple other brands, and they've never done a non-alcohol frozen novelty. So the reaction on this was so much greater because there's less restrictions when you look at alcohol and where you can actually sell a license extension. There's certain retailers that are just not forward thinking and don't want to support something like that. So Chiquita, the response was they thought they were going to go into about 10,000 doors, and right now they're at about 20,000 doors that they're shipping into. They had such a positive response. They want to now look at coming over to North America, where they don't have a lot of experience. So what we did was we bridged the gap. We introduced them to one of the largest brokers in the U.S. So they're going to be behind the scenes, selling it in, merchandising it, and then 2 co-packers over here. So now all of a sudden, we'll take the same product over in Europe, bring it over here. So in 27, we hope to see product showing up on grocery and mass retailers.
Yeah, no, that's pretty amazing that you guys would then connect them with the distribution side as well as the manufacturing side. This is really pure business development. You're actually developing business from the scratch, like from the ground up for these guys.
It is. And you know what? Over the years, because we work with so many manufacturers, you get to understand who their brokers are. You walk trade shows like Expo West for sweet and snacks, and you see them there. And so you understand that how important they actually are. And they're not directly involved with our business, so I'm not licensing them the rights, but they're a critical component. And I'm starting to work directly with brokers like Acosta. And I'm learning a lot on their go-to market strategy. And they're helping out companies that just don't have the distribution. They have really good quality products. And so we're actually filtering more and more of these smaller manufacturers, introducing them to some brokers to help them. At the end of the day, it's in our best interest to support them, help them get on shelf, because they're going to pay a royalty to my client, and then I make a percentage of that.
Right. No, that's awesome. And so in your experience, when should a brand consider getting into licensing?
It's a good question. So it depends if we're looking at outbound, when I'm representing a brand that we want to extend into new categories, versus maybe a manufacturer looking at licenses. So from the outbound, when I look at Chiquita and extending them to new formats, typically we will interview the potential client when they reach out to us, because I want to know a little background about them. Where are they selling? What's their market share? What's their brand awareness? What is their strategy in licensing? Because there's different reasons why companies get involved in licensing. Mm-hmm. Think about manufacturers. Maybe it's a premium company, better for you positioning, and they're selling more specialty retail accounts. They want to diversify their portfolio. They have the capacity, if they're either with their co-packer or internally with their own manufacturing. And so they want to keep the production lines going. And they want to look at maybe, okay, they have premium positioning with their control brand. Let's bring on a licensed brand and go more value. Let's go into other channels of distribution. So that was one way that manufacturers might look at licensing. The other is, let me bring in licensing and increase my SKU count and take shelf space away from a competitor. But there's many different reasons. Some clients look at it for purely marketing, brand impressions in a different part of the store. Others look at it from a revenue perspective. So it really depends. Yeah. And then even on the manufacturing side, when they're looking at licensing, same thing. They're looking either keeping their capacity going, revenue motivated. So it depends. There's a lot of variables there.
Totally. In my experience, I've seen that one of the best forms, especially if a manufacturer, if their own brand has low brand awareness, getting into licensing, you can borrow the equity of the licensor basically to give you that leg up. Because I'm sure that even talking like the reason they got into 20,000 stores is because, oh, there's Chiquita, it's a recognizable brand. It's going to have a higher percentage of trial. Consumers are going to trust it faster. And so instead of trying to build up your own brand and spend millions of doing that, you basically shortcut that process basically.
Absolutely. And, another one of my clients is Talking Rain, and they own a brand called Sparkling Ice. And they're the category leader in carbonated flavored water here in the States. About a $1.3 billion brand. They've never done licensing before. And so back in 24, they had asked me to look at what brands are out there that we could collaborate with and do a co-brand. And so we partnered them with Mars, and we ended up licensing in the Starburst brand. So in 24, they launched with 4 SKUs. And then additional 2 last year. They were blown away on how the buyers reacted. It ended up bringing in a younger demographic into their brand. They ended up getting incremental distribution in new channels that they were not servicing. And they're a big brand. Their ACV is massive. So they ended up going into about 89,000 doors. They sold well north of 200 million, brought in 3 million new consumers into their brand. And it was amazing. So it hit over 10% of their bottom line, and they just had no idea. And then since then, just in the past 2 weeks, we launched Lifesavers. So it's like a phase 2 with Mars with their second brand. So that's just rolling out now with Kroger and HEB. And then it'll start to, by summertime, hit the mass and clubs and other channels. And then we did a LTO last summer with a produce brand called Cuties. And Sparkling Ice came out with a miniature can, and it had cuties and it had 2 different flavor profiles. And that allowed them, because it was a produce brand, get distribution in different part of the store.
Right.
So now all of a sudden they're merchandising next to produce, next to the cuties product. So again, a lot of different added value when these companies look at licensing.
You know what? I think that's amazing success stories. I think even within that different parts of the store, different demographic to be able to attract to your brand. That's fantastic. So, and I'm sure every marketer right now is thinking, oh man, I want to, or if you're an owner, you're like, okay, how do we do that? So tell us about the deal structure, because that's the one thing that people are going to want to know. It's like, well, what do we have to budget for? How do we do this? How are deals typically structured? So give us an insight on that.
Sure. So in an industry standard process of structuring a deal and licensing, so it's not just what I do, but what my competitors and studios and the sports leagues, typically these deal structures, there's a term limit. So on average, you're looking at around a 3 to a 4 year contract. You're paying a royalty. So when we look at food and beverage with corporate brands, like a Chiquita or some of these others, on average, you're looking around a 5% royalty on net sales to the retailer that you're paying back to the brand owner. So you have the term, you have the royalty rate, then there'll be a minimum guarantee that's paid out during the term of the contract, all recoupable against future sales. And typically those minimum guarantees are structured on the more conservative side. It's giving the manufacturer skin in the game so that they're focused. So year 1, maybe they're not getting sold into Target or Walmart, and they're going to go back in year 2. But they have these minimum guarantees that they have to recoup and offset. So it keeps them motivated out there, presenting, continuing to display at trade shows. Yeah. And then we'll structure in these contracts some product development and marketing commitments as well. And it really just depends on the manufacturers.
Okay. So it's really, so you have your minimum guarantee. So let's say it's 5% of sales. And then if you don't hit that 5% or that minimum guarantee, then it's like you just have to pay that regardless over the course, right? So
that is correct.
Keeps everybody accountable. You kind of, the brand, the licensor knows it's like they're getting a guaranteed revenue stream from that, but obviously with a big upside that's kind of shared.
Hopefully. Absolutely.
Right. Okay. And then what's your role within this? Because because some brands might think, oh, I can just, I'll go out and I'll try to find somebody out there or use a broker. Like, where does that broker role and how does that work?
Sure. So we're considered a licensing agent. So when a brand owner, CPG company, is looking for representation, we typically, whatever we're doing, we're exclusive and we're an extension of them. So the contracts are directly with my clients, not with me. So my clients have oversight on everything that we do, from selecting the manufacturer to the business terms to when we finalize the contract negotiations, they'll review and approve it. So they are involved. They just don't typically, not a lot of CPG companies will have internal licensing departments. You'll see a lot of my competitors are out there representing these brands, but more and more are, I would say, on the agency side using them than they are internally with these brand owners. And there's exceptions to that. The studios, they all do that on their own. They have internal teams. The sports leagues, they all do that. But when it comes to brands, more use agencies.
Right. Yeah. So let's say, for example, Chiquita is your client. They came to you and you found this opportunity, you created it, you made it all happen. It probably a long time in the process. How long did it take from the start to getting it finalized, finished, and in market? What is that timeline?
So it depends on, it's a good question. It depends on, if not using Chiquita, but just in general, if a brand is active in licensing, then that process will go a lot quicker because they already have the guardrails and everything in place. They have boilerplate contracts. So that could be anywhere from 2.5 to 4 months. Those are with brands that are active. If you're reaching out to, like with Cuties, they were not involved in licensing at all. That took longer. That something like that could take anywhere from 4 to 12 months because they just don't know and don't have expectations. So I actually help guide them through the process, even though I'm representing Sparkling Ice, and it made the transition go quicker.
Right. So just for all marketers, making sure you build in enough time to be able to plan for it, to secure them, to look at it. So you're looking at could be 6 to 12 months, depending on the sophistication and the experience of the licensor that you're dealing with.
Yep. And then they obviously have to face going through product development, and then whatever those buyers, the resets of the planograms and when they are buying, there's a lot of moving obstacles here. And so that's what, yes, manufacturers have to plan accordingly, and do it sooner than later if you are looking to put, a collaboration or licensing together. And when they do reach out to brands or agencies, they'll guide them through it and let them know how long it takes.
Yeah, neat. And so what if let's say, you're a brand, you're selling in, let's say you're a bread brand, really well known, and you're thinking, you know what, maybe we should license our brand out, maybe to flour companies, maybe to other things to really kind of maybe increase revenue. So you want to become a licensor in a way. They would then go to you and to do that. But is it only reserved for, say, very large ones? Or in your experience, at what stage does a brand need to get to become a licensor?
I like to work with national brands. It makes it a lot easier for me then to go find licensees. And then they can go into national accounts like a Target, Walmart, or a club. Regional, they're fine. Like I used to work and represent Entenmann's. And as big as Entenmann's is, they over-index in the Northeast and the Southeast of the U.S. And then once you cross the Mississippi, they're in big cities and pockets, but they're not in suburbs like they are on the East Coast. So some of the manufacturers that we were approaching, let's say within the ice cream space, felt that was a challenge because some of their buyers didn't want to buy it nationwide. And so we had to play in the areas where Entenmann's was very strong. So it takes a little more work, a little more resources. It takes, manufacturers to get a little creative sometimes. But there's brands that are in the infancy stage that will stay engaged with. We'll give them guidance. We'll tell them, hey, I think it's too early for you to enter into licensing. Continue to build your core brand. Continue to build distribution. Then look at licensing. Because licensing is never going to lead here. It's always going to follow whatever the core product is.
Yeah, that's really that's a really good point. So what are some mistakes and pitfalls that you've seen? And let's say from a licensor perspective, and then because most of our audience are going to be manufacturers and marketers of brands themselves. And so where have you seen that pitfalls to avoid, or when you're going to enter into it, what they should almost do and have and as a next step?
I would say alignment between the brand owner and the manufacturer. So that manufacturer, when I'm about to recommend to one of my clients a particular manufacturer that we found, we negotiated the business terms, I'm going to have them present their corporate capabilities presentation, their vision for that brand. And that vision is, okay, this is the format products that they want to do, formulations, just some ideas of flavor profiles, the lead times that it takes for them from product development to retail presentations to going on shelf. So you get my clients then aligned with their timelines so that they're in sync. That's critical so that you're not getting a CEO of a brand owner who says, why isn't this out there yet? And so they'll know in advance exactly what they're up against and how long things will take to get out in the marketplace. But that is critical. I would say communication is key. It's sharing information as you're under license and you have that relationship with the brand owner, constantly sharing them information. So you go into a retail presentation, good, bad, or different, share that with the brand owner. The more that you can build and establish that relationship, down the line, if there's any issues, that brand owner is going to be so much more flexible and willing to work with them because they're working with a good partner, a good licensee.
Yeah. So here's an interesting thing. So it sounds like if I'm a manufacturer and I'm like, man, let's say I'm like, man, I really want to get Chiquita banana on here. Almost creating a pitch deck for them that gets them excited about, hey guys, here's our vision for how we want to use your brand. Here are the kind of products. Here's how we're going to support it. And it sounds like, and here's kind of our manufacturing timelines, capabilities, all this kind of stuff. So you almost want to get that licensor really excited about how their brand can really excel within that. Would that be accurate?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then the other thing is we'll look at, okay, what are the projections? What's the potential here? And it's a guessing game at a certain point. You just don't know how the consumers are going to react, if the buyer's going to be interested. Are you going to get those repeat purchases? So we'll look at low, medium, and high from projections, very conservative. Maybe you're just going to go onto Amazon and sell direct to consumer. That will be the most conservative. And then, hey, what if you did get a Walmart or a Kroger or a Publix? And so we'll look at different scenarios so that we know what the upside is, because you also want to attract the brand owner that what kind of revenues could be if we're hitting on all cylinders. But we're not going to structure it on those very high numbers. We're going to look at it more on the conservative angle.
Right. And so I think that where do you find that you're just like, that's too small of the projections? Like, is there a certain amount that you'd say, we don't even look at anything unless it's X amount? Or is there certain things, because I'm sure as we're planning, we're like, oh man, I'd love to use this, but our projections are maybe only $1 million in year one. Is that even is it worth it? Is it not? Or at what stage are you just like, guys, nobody's even going to look at that?
It depends on my clients, on how they evaluate licensing. Sometimes, yes, the dollars do come into play and says, it's just not worth my time. The amount of investment that the brand owner or the agency, because we get legal involved, accounting and finance from the royalties, my creative team from the trafficking product approvals, and then my brand managers that manage the licensees from a day-to-day perspective. So you got to just understand what's the return on investment there. But let me back up and say that some of my clients, even though it might generate a few dollars additional, you got to remember, some of these big CPG companies that are in licensing, the royalties are a rounding error at the end of the day to the bottom line. But they'll look at it, okay, all of a sudden now I'm going to get impressions in a different part of the store, in a different aisle than where our core product is. So they like that very much. PR and marketing that might be going behind that. So there's other reasons why some of these companies will get involved in licensing, not just the royalties generated. So I would say to your audience, it could be a small opportunity, but look into it, because you never know what some of these bigger brands will say.
Right. That's good. It's a good. And so even as a first step, as a marketer, everybody's busy. We all have stuff that we're doing. Is it something that they would just say, reach out, because you have different brands that you represent. So it's is it looking at your portfolio, for example, and saying, hey, you know what? You represent a brand that I think might be a good fit. And then just kind of reaching out and say, hey, James, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think there's an opportunity here? Almost like a bit of a sniff check kind of with you. Would that be a first one? Or you're saying, no, you know what? Have these things in mind and then reach out to me.
No, they can reach out to me, because if it's a brand I represent, great. I would love that. But then we also consult for manufacturers and help them go get brands that I don't represent. So, like Talking Rain, as an example, with Sparkling Ice, I didn't represent Mars, so I went and got that license or Cuties for them. So we do both sides. So that's more called inbound licensing for the manufacturer versus what I do with my clients' brands, where it's outbound.
Right. And it sounds like I think the benefit, and even just in my experience too of working with yourself or Joester, is that you have connect, like the industry is fairly small, right? You probably have contacts or know people after 30 years of doing this that you're like, you know what, I probably know most people, and give you that credibility versus you trying to reach out to them on your own. Would that be accurate?
100%. And that's probably the most critical part, our Rolodexes, because as you just mentioned, our industry is small. We all know each other. All of our competitors, we're all very friendly with one another for the most part. And if someone's in licensing, we'll know who they are. We'll know how to get in front of them quicker and get a reaction versus someone that doesn't know anyone, reaching out.
Oh, that's awesome. Who do you think's doing a great job right now? Like if you're looking at in the food and beverage space, you're like, man, like I really like what they're doing. They're aggressive with it, or they're doing some really cool stuff. Like who do you see?
I really like what Hershey's has done. So there's a gentleman over there by the name of Ernie that oversees consumer product licensing. He's built that brand into $1 billion consumer product licensing business. So here in North America, Europe, and Asia, and what they've done in food and in lifestyle, he's done an excellent job. So he manages mostly the food aspect of it, and then the lifestyle, so the t-shirts, accessories, all these other things. He brought on an agency like mine, and best in class. They do a really good job. So they're good. And then you look at someone like Coca-Cola. They've been around, one of the biggest IPs in the world. They're massive, and they do a really good job. So they control it themselves internally down in Atlanta, but then they'll use agents like me in the rest of the part of the world. So throughout Europe and Asia, they don't have local offices, so then they'll use agents. So they're really good. That's the brand owners. But then if you look at all the manufacturers out there, there's a lot of them that do a really good job licensing as well. You have companies that most people probably never heard of, Golden West Food Group. They're in California. They started off as a company that did private label with the Trader Joe's of the world. They probably do a few hundred different SKUs from shelf stable to frozen. But maybe about 15 years ago, they took the license with Jack Daniels, and they did pulled pork and chicken and ribs and went into grocery and mass. And back then, it was about a $150 million business. And I think they got to understand licensing, and then they've really diversified their portfolio. They work with Kellogg's, and they do ice cream today at Walmart with Pop-Tarts and some of the cereal brands from Kellogg's. So I think they're an interesting company, and there's many others out there just like them.
Man, what a great example, because there's a lot of private label companies that want to create their own brands and move into that, but to leverage licensing to do it, I think is it's a smart go-to-market strategy. Yeah,
Yes.
That's really neat. Man, that's really cool about Hershey's too. I didn't, you see all these lifestyle brands, you see all these kind of different, keychains and tchotchkes and whatever it's such a great way to get that. And now, is there opportunities like that's out there? Because I know that even brands are like, man, I'd love to get more merch, for example, for my brand. And maybe get into a licensing deal. Is that an opportunity that you see, or what do you see opportunities that you're like, guys, if you think about licensing differently, it could open up more opportunities, and most people just most manufacturers, they don't even think about it, but there could be that option. Like, do you see that out there?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you're referring to more like lifestyle product outside of the food and beverage, some of my clients like Constellation Brands, they control Modelo, Pacifico, and Corona here in the U.S. 99% of our business is more novelty, lifestyle-related products. So if you walk into a Walmart, Target, PacSun, you'll see T-shirts with Modelo or Corona, or keychains, or coolers, or beach bags and beach towels. These are all products that consumers buy, not promotional, not given away from the bottlers, but these are manufacturers that take the license and sell it into those type of retailers. But there's a lot of that. Like you said, Hershey's, they do a lot. Mars does a lot. So there's a combination of both lifestyle and food extensions with these companies. Food is where the revenue is coming from. But a lot of the brand managers from these big CPGs, they do like collaborations are really the hot thing of the past 4 or 5 years. And these lifestyle extensions, sometimes they gravitate more towards that and get excited about being disruptive and unique than maybe a food extension, from my experience.
Yeah, totally. And what about like we talked about LTOs, like limited time only SKUs or things that go out there. Are you seeing good success? Obviously, you just said that it's rising. Are you seeing that trend? And how can a marketer take advantage of that trend in a very maybe seamless or an easy way? Like what kind of advice to give to a marketer to be like, oh, here, you know what? If you think about collaborations, think about maybe these few things to be able to do that, because we want to do them. We just don't have 12 months to develop on a LTO maybe, or 16 months. So we want to be able to do it a little bit faster. Any thoughts on how a marketer could take advantage of it?
Yeah, I would say majority of the brand owners love LTOs and collaborations. They're pretty much the same thing. So the way we define a collaboration is more of a short-term LTO in and out versus a license is just a longer period of time. The execution's the same thing. The process that you go through is the same thing. There's really not much of a difference. And then sometimes manufacturers look at these collaborations and LTOs as a test. Let's try it first before we jump in for that 2, 3, 4 year agreement, and we'll see how the consumers and the buyers react to it, and then it could turn into a longer term license play. But yeah, it's the same approach as I was saying for the manufacturer reaching out, speaking to the brand owner. There are some companies that will shy away from it because they are short-lived in and out collaborations, that the revenue is great during that collaboration, then it's over. And now this brand owner, whoever's managing licensing, is like, now I got to chase the dollars and what's next and got to keep going. And we do a lot of collaborations for our clients within health and beauty aids to apparel and in fashion accessories. That's where more collaborations go. Food, yes, they are happening. I mean, sparkling ice example that I was sharing, we were looking at that as more of a short-term thing, and it did so well that we just kept going with it. It went from looking at 6 months to a year to like, oh, let's do 2 years. Buyers do get fatigue, so they're like, okay, what's next? And you'll see that, and that's why you see a lot of companies rotate in and out of brands. But if you walk your local grocery aisle, you're going to see more licensing / collaborations today than you ever have before. And a lot of these younger food companies are getting aggressive in doing it, and so are the large CPG companies. But there's more. I'm seeing so much more extensions out there than I've ever seen before.
Oh, 100%. Now, is the deal structure for collaborations, like, is it different? Is it easier? Is there still that minimum component, or is it more of a, like, is it differ at all in terms of the long-term versus a short-term one, or?
They're very similar. So there is a royalty, an advance guarantee, but the financials are obviously going to be smaller. And then in a collaboration, in a perfect one, is you want both parties bringing something to the table here. So it's not just one-sided. Where licensing, it might be a little more one-sided. The manufacturer's taking on the onus of doing everything. Versus now the brand owner, if you're doing a collaboration, you want to use the brand owner's social media, their website, maybe there's events and marketing they're involved with, and seeing where there's some synergies between both companies to help out each other to really drive this collaboration.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, James, if we looked inside your pantry, what kind of brands are you seeing, or which ones, even from a collaboration, you're just like, oh man, I love this brand, I love this food and beverage brand, I love what they're doing. Like, what would that look like?
Let's see. Well, if I open up my refrigerator, I'm going to see Amy Lou. So I love the sausage brand. For whatever reason, I've gravitated towards that. If I open my freezer, I'm going to grab a Yasso bar.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then if I open a cabinet, my pantry, Dave's Killer Bread, because I just had lunch. And so those are my 3 brands.
Nice, man. Yeah, Dave's they had a great, yeah, they're doing a great job. I still remember when that launched, like maybe 15 years ago. Yeah, what a cool name, very unique branding in that in the bread category. You'd be surprised how many clients have actually come to me and said, we just want to be like a Dave's Killer. And you're like, oh my gosh. You can't take that same story, and there's lots of different pitfalls potentially within that. But yeah, they do a good job. They do a great job out of that one. One question I always ask all of our guests is, who has had an impact on your life and career, and what did you learn from them?
So the founders of my agency that I'm at now, Deborah Joester and Joester Loria, are the two most brilliant women I've ever met. When I was in licensing before working for them, and I thought I knew everything. To this day, they still will push me, teach me. They're just amazing. They're in the Hall of Fame of licensing, and one of them's retired. The other one still working, and I hope she continues to work with us forever. But they're brilliant. They're disruptive. They've just changed the industry, and it's been an honor just to work for them, to be honest with you. And I love what I do. Yeah,
that's awesome. And then when you say they're pushing you, they're disruptive, like what are the strategies that you're like, oh man, that's like, yeah, is there certain principles that they're really, making things happen? Like what is that?
A little different. Like, we're very protective of our clients. We're not just going to do a deal because the numbers are really good. Like, we'll really think it through and look at it. What's going to be long term? What's going to be safer for our clients? How do we reduce as much risk out of it? I just say they challenge us. When I say us, our entire team. We're a mid-sized boutique agency. There's 25 of us. But just the way we structure deals, the way we look at products, the way we will go to retail, because we do a lot with retailers. We work closely with them. We'll license retailers directly, and then they will work with the manufacturers. So just many angles, but their experience and what they brought in, and just it's been amazing. And I'm just shocked that I'm still learning, and I'm happy for that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And what's the best way for a marketer to engage you? So let's say on the manufacturing side, they're thinking about licensing, they want to get these things, like what can they expect? They reach out to you, and what's the best way to do that? Or maybe it's on LinkedIn, maybe it's this, maybe it's, we can put your contact info within, within kind of our notes and stuff in here. But what's the best way for them to just start the process of working with you?
So reach out anyway, through here would be great, or LinkedIn. Just shoot me an email and initiate the conversation there. And then we'll schedule a call and discuss further. But happy to help anyone out, ask questions, and I will give them as much direction as I can, and help guide them and introduce them to others out there that the brands that maybe I don't represent, and I'm not asking to consult for them, but I'm happy to make those introductions.
No, that's great. And then any trade shows, anything that I know I've been to Licensing International, or the Licensing Expo, and when you look at those, is it good to walk the show? Should you book some meetings with other people when you're there? Is there anything that a marketer could do to start to get into this industry a little bit more?
Yeah, so we do have Licensing Expo for North America, and then we have Brand Licensing Expo in Europe, and then there's others throughout the world. But yeah, you're right. At Licensing Expo in May, which is in Las Vegas, scheduling meetings ahead of time is, I would highly recommend, because our calendars fill up before the show, and we'll have meetings. It's like speed dating. Every 15 minutes or half hour, a new manufacturer or a retailer's coming in. And it's more of a meet and greet, very top line discussion. Then it's really after the show that we'll get into more details. But it is a good show. You'll get a handful of the studios that are there. All the agencies like mine are there. Brand owners are there. It's one of the most important shows in our industry, and we go to all your shows, so all the food shows, so the Fancy Food, the Expo West, Sweet and Snacks, Anuga in Germany. There's so many of them. We're trade show junkies, so we're always at those shows, and we're going to more and more every year.
Yeah, I know. It's that's a great advice, because when I went to the first time to the Licensing Expo, I didn't book meetings ahead of time, and you go through and then you realize, like, oh, you have to get on the schedule because, and then it's all full, and it's like,
Yeah.
ah, darn it. So it's that's a great advice, but I would highly recommend it, and it's actually one of the shows that really cost effective, just to even be there and walk it, but planning ahead of time is such an important piece. So yeah, it's great advice on that side.
And they have a lot of seminars, so licensing 101, so you've got to learn about how to structure deals and how to approach it, kind of similar to what we're doing today on here. But there's a lot of those, so it's good learnings and findings. And then you'll have some of the big studios, the Disneys and the Universals. They'll have their kind of their upfronts. It gives them download to all the manufacturers and retailers on what's coming out, what's new, the releases, and what is their focus on consumer products for the next year or two.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, James, thanks so much for your time, for your advice. And I highly recommend for all the marketers out there, if that licensing is not part of your mix currently, I highly recommend it, especially for innovation, new SKUs, new areas to be able to attract new consumers or categories that you want to get into. Such a great strategy to do that. But James, thanks so much, and I look forward to seeing you at the trade shows in the future.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome.